Welcome, everyone, to America Uncanceled. Wow, after 4 days and 15 rounds of voting, Kevin McCarthy finally secured the House speakership role that has eluded him for years. With several Republican holdouts making an all-out siege against the speakership and new House rules, and several deals, how is the Republican Party better off? And what can we expect to see from House Republicans in coming months? Joining us today to discuss the outcome of this prolonged speakership race is someone who was really at the middle of all the action, who was really pushing to get concrete deals. He is also chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, Congressman Scott Perry from Pennsylvania. Congressman, thanks for being with us.
Well, it's great to be with the Schlaps. Thanks for everything. Thanks for all your support in the middle of the fight.
So I have just a basic question for you. Have you finally had a night's rest? Did you get a shower, change of clothes? Did you get to kind of freshen up?
I did a little bit, but I will tell you, look, I'm an Army guy, so we're kind of used to that, but it's not fun when you're doing it. You can do it, but not showering, not sleeping, that was kind of like, I hadn't really been in my office in 4 days. It was almost incredible. The pressure, the intensity, the speed. But look, we were just fighting for the little guy that Washington seemed to have abandoned. That's exactly what we were doing. Fighting for the little guy. We had an opportunity, finally had a point where we could get some of the things that, quite honestly, all Americans want, all Republicans want. A lot of people, as you guys know, they love the sausage. They just don't like to see the sausage being made. Right. So, but unfortunately, we couldn't get the sausage without being in the kitchen.
Well, I got to tell you, it was better than watching like binge watching a Netflix series. Just the back and forth. And really, what I loved about it is that it showed the spirit of America, which is that voices should be heard, that no one should be shut down because of really the changes that needed to be made. Tell us really, what was that turning point when you finally got to reach that agreement with now Speaker Kevin McCarthy?
So we were, having some negotiations. They weren't getting very far. I think they really believed we weren't serious and that we would cave in, and we just wouldn't. And, finally, after day 2, they said, look, do you want to sit down and talk? And I said, look, I've been here trying to talk since last summer. Sure, we're willing to sit down and talk. And they said, what is it that you're interested in? And I said, well, it starts with this memo that we gave the leader last December. Let's start there. And quite honestly, in a lot of it, we were negotiating without Kevin in the room because, look, there are some trust issues. I think you know this, that many members have with Kevin. You have to find a way around that. But when the kind of other side saw some of the things that we were looking for, I think they were astounded, and they said, well, we're for these things too. And when it came to that, and we seem to have what I call the framework for an agreement, understand, while this is happening, these are the stakes. So there's always the risk of some of the liberal Republicans working with Democrats to form a coalition. So we're battling that. And also, unless you adjourn, the votes just keep going. So you have to walk out on the floor and vote. And so we were at some point, where the vote was coming. We had good faith negotiations. The other side said, yeah, we think we can do these things. And once we had that, we had to work out some of the details, some of the exact language and so on and so forth. We had to go to the floor and vote. And when we had that framework, I looked at everybody and I said, they're giving the things that we're asking for in good faith. If that's the case, he's still not going to have the votes, but we can signal that we're heading in the right direction. And that's what that was. It was a signal that we were heading in the right direction. Still had to firm some things up, still had to get through some things. But, you don't nothing's perfect. You don't get 100% of everything you asked for. And we didn't get everything we wanted. We didn't get everything our way. But we made significant progress. And it was of my opinion, and the opinion of many, that we were going to fundamentally be able to transform the way Congress works. And what we had continued to ask for is give us the tools or the personnel or both to change how Congress works and to break this cycle of 6, 8 people in Washington, D.C. running the whole country, and the rest of us, coming along in this illusion of representative government. Once we got there, we said, okay, well, we'll keep talking. We think we're making progress here.
So there's the I hate this word narrative, Scott, but like that's always kind of enters in the narrative.
Yeah.
So there's this common narrative, or the stuff people are saying, let's just say it that way, that you have damaged Kevin McCarthy's ability to now be an effective speaker because he has no tools. The rest of us look at this situation and say, Kevin McCarthy is now the first Republican speaker of the last 3 to acknowledge that the Freedom Caucus is a real presence inside the Republican conference, instead of trying to roll over them or steamroll them or lie to them or pretend they're not there. Kevin now knows that they're there, and so his speakership actually has a chance to succeed because you guys can all make decisions together as a conference. Do I have it right or wrong?
No, I think you have it right, Matt, but let me put some meat on the bone. So oftentimes, as you know, what happens is a few people negotiate some agreement in the back room, and then they bring it out for 200 plus members of Congress and say, here, vote for this. And we look at it and say, well, this isn't what we wanted, but if you don't go along with it, you're not a member of the team and you're a problem. We've said, let's get in on the discussion in the front, before the car leaves the garage, so that we can already be there when it gets to the destination and we won't be opposed to it. What we have done with the tools that we put in place is actually look, it's up to Kevin McCarthy, but he has the prospect of being the most successful speaker in modern history. And especially when it comes to the Senate, when they send us one of those 2 o'clock in the morning, 4,000-page, $1.7 trillion bills that look like a Christmas tree of things that don't belong on it, he can just say, hey, look, we're not accepting it. You got to go back to the drawing table. You, Senate, make us always accept your rules. Now you're going to have to accept ours. We have empowered him to stop Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden from rolling the House of Representatives in a bad deal. It's up to him now to take the reins and ride that stallion the whole way to the stable.
Congressman, give us some of the examples of what you were able to accomplish in terms of these negotiations. I see that, like the Southern Border Security Plan. What were the 2 or 3 things that you want our viewers to know in what you really were able to negotiate and get done?
So first of all, accountability. For a couple hundred years since Thomas Jefferson wrote it, the thing called the motion to vacate the chair. Accountability for the Speaker of the House, the most powerful person in the building, third in line to the presidency. Thomas Jefferson wrote it. Speakers for 200 years have presided with that there. And Nancy Pelosi said, no, I'm not going to be accountable to anybody. We restored that. So that's number 1. Number 2, lasting rules. Single subject bills. So when a bill comes to the floor, it has to be about one subject. Americans are so tired of, well, I had to vote for it because this tiny little thing was in it and I had to accept all the bad things. No longer does that have to happen. Matt and Mercedes, this is the first time in U.S. history that is now a provision. So the American people can say, oh, why did you vote yes? Why did you vote no on one subject? Nobody can hide anymore. That's going to be a lasting provision. And then finally, representation across the conference and all the committees that looks like America. So not just, the left wing of the Republican Party, but all sides of the Republican Party. So we can all be on board when the legislation is being drafted. So we can all be on board at the end when it's time to vote for it. And we don't have to say, oh, well, I didn't know anything about this. You will know something about it.
Yeah, so I love that last provision. So you actually know what you're passing. That's a huge thing. Do you think that your colleagues, this was pretty rough with the TV cameras on. What people don't know behind the scenes, Mercy and I have both worked in the House of Representatives as staffers.
We were really young back then, Scott, really young.
By the way, we worked on 4th floor of Cannon for different Republican members. And I guess because I was such an old geezer, we didn't really ever meet at that time. But the point is, Scott, Chairman, which I love saying, do you think that we can get that cohesion back together? Did it get so fraught that it's, that tensions ran so high that we're forever busted as a conference, or can we get it back?
No. Look, you know how these things, they fade quickly in a month. Nobody's probably barely going to remember this, but I will tell you this. There's a new understanding among a lot of members that never had to talk to each other, that could dismiss one another or the viewpoints of one another.
Can I interrupt you 1 second?
Yeah.
So we're watching on C-SPAN and other networks, and what was also so interesting is watching liberal Democrats, left-wing Democrats talk to conservative Republicans and Freedom Caucus Republicans, I saw relationships building there. Was that just what I was seeing, or is that real?
No, those are relationships that are being built. And here's what you got. You guys know, we wanted to empower members, because when you empower members, you empower the little person back home, far away from Washington, D.C., that sent them there. And so across the board, look, nobody, well, not nobody, but there's a lot of people that didn't like what we went through for 4 days. But I can't tell you how many members have come up to us after the fact and said, thank you for doing this. We've got a great system now, and we're really looking forward to work under it. So, look, it's tough work. You got to be courageous, but everybody knew it needed to be done. Just nobody wanted to step out and do it.
Right. And I think like the American people were so used to kind of the Nancy Pelosi approach where, you know, it's so clean cut, everyone steps in line. And what I love about the Republican Party and really conservatives is that we're loud. We have opinions and it's messy. Now, I will say, though, I was very disappointed with Dan Crenshaw when he came out and really, you know, made these inflammatory statements about the 20 individuals who were opposing Kevin McCarthy. I mean, don't you think that went a little too far? And really, shouldn't it be a point where instead of using that sort of inflammatory language, instead basically say, we're going to get there? Or I don't know. I just didn't like how how some of the Republicans, moderate Republicans, were really trying to, you know, hit hard on the conservatives.
Well, here's what you know, Mercedes, that coercion and, you know, we have a saying where I live, if you swat at bees, you're probably going to get stung, right?
Yeah,
but if you put some honey out, you might get something else. So I would say this, you guys know this. There's a lot of members, current and former, that are interested in maintaining the status quo. Mm-hmm. And look, you know, this town works for itself. It doesn't work for the American people in many respects. And so there's a lot of vested interest in keeping things just the way they are. And I think that's reflective of that. We smiled right through it. We kept going. I don't have an ill thing to say about anybody because we got to the finish line and we made things better. And that's what's most important here.
Yeah, for sure. And I was, so many people said to me, this is embarrassing. This is not how we should
Matt
keep
loved
this.
It. Matt was like, this is great. Keep going.
This is called messy democracy.
It did stress me out. I'm not going to lie to you. I was like, all right, let's just get there. Come on, guys. We can do it.
Well, but I want to give you a perspective of someone down the hall from me here.
Yeah.
You know, my mother's is Colombian, and, you know, I have some of those roots. But somebody with Cuban roots here, a member of Congress said, I know this looked a little messy, but I will just give you the perspective that if you tried anything like this in Cuba, you'd be dead.
Shot. That's right.
This is what it looks like. Having discussions, having arguments, sharing ideas, and finding the best path forward. That's what this is. That's what self-governing is. Yeah. And so we've gotten used to the fact that the deal's already made and everybody just goes along with it. And we as citizens, our part is to complain about it.
Right.
Well, that's not going to fix anything. Let's do something about it.
I agree. And moving forward, as you're all laying out this agenda for this next Congress, you're seeing that you all passed the bill to block the boost to IRS funding and hiring.
Yeah.
Walk us through what are going to be sort of the top priorities as we go into the year.
Okay, so legislatively, and Matt, you kind of talked about this before, we want the Texas border. We want that border security bill. We want a chance to vote on it. We want a chance to vote on term limits. We want a chance to vote on a balanced budget amendment. We want the chance that's part of the negotiation as well. But let's face it, you guys know Chuck Schumer's not going to take anything up, and certainly Joe Biden's not really going to be interested in any legislation that we take up. So our real leverage points are in spending, the debt ceiling, the appropriations bills. And so we're going to do a lot of oversight. We're going to approve the weaponization of the federal government. I call it the WTFG committee to take a look at all the weaponization of the federal government against the citizens. So there's going to be a lot of oversight and investigations, and then these fights over fiscal policy where we have leverage points. And on that point, on the IRS in particular, we passed the bill so Americans know where Republicans are. But let's face it, Chuck Schumer's not going to take it up. Joe Biden's not going to sign it. But what they're going to force to do is deal with us on fiscal issues where we defund all those 87,000 IRS agents and dare them to go to go fight for that for the American people or shut down the federal government. If they want to shut down the federal government to support 87,000 IRS agents, God bless them.
That's right. Well, thank you, Congressman Perry, for first of all, for being so courageous and for really making such a difference in this important debate that we needed. And also, we hope to see you at CPAC in March. I'm already inviting him, Schlopp. I don't know if you're inviting him.
You're busting up the system, but I think you're going to be okay.
I'm busting up the system, but it's the first weekend in March, and we hope to God you can make it. It's going to be here at the in Maryland, so it won't be too far from your office.
Sure. Well, it's always an honor and a privilege, and I hope to accept your invitation, but I'll follow the protocol, Matt. I know I don't want to get sideways with Mercedes, but I also don't want to get sideways with you, so I'll behave myself.
The most powerful person in the congressional office is the scheduler, so we can't make he or she upset, okay?
That's right. You got that right.
All right. Well, thank you, Congressman, and thank you for watching. And remember, we've expanded to the podcast world, and you can listen to America Uncanceled with Matt and Mercedes Schlapp wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to get your CPAC tickets. You can go to cpac.org/DC.